Throughout their almost 100 years of producing animation, the Walt Disney Animation Studio has had many ups and downs. For many fans, however, there is one period that stands above all the rest. That period is the Disney Renaissance. This era, beginning with 1989's The Little Mermaid and ending with 1999's Tarzan, saw Disney come back to prominence in the world of Western animation. They had spent much of the 70s and 80s struggling to find their identity after the passing of founder Walt Disney. The Renaissance saw them go back to their roots by adapting classic fairy tales. These were the movies that solidified Disney as a money-making empire, and the majority of them remain classics to this day. But when it comes down to it, which of these movies are truly the best of the best? I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and this is the Disney Renaissance Worst to Best. But first, today's video is sponsored by YouGov. What if I told you you could easily earn some extra cash just by offering up your opinion? YouGov is a global research company that wants to know what you think about all kinds of topics. Opinions on brands, politics, social issues, public affairs, you name it. They have surveys and polls about everything. Do you like Cocoa Puffs or Lucky Charms? Netflix or Hulu? Should we save the dolphins or bomb the dolphins? It's free to join, and as a member, you'll earn points by completing surveys and answering questions via the website or app. And you'll even get a bonus for completing your first surveys and recommending YouGov to friends. And since you can redeem your points for cash or gift cards, you can fund just about anything. Personally, I typically put extra cash into video equipment or PC parts because there's always room for upgrades. Thank you, YouGov, for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to click the link in the description so you can start earning that sweet money. Now, let's get back to the video. For this list, we'll be starting off with the worst and working our way up to the best. Keep in mind we are talking about the Renaissance era, so many would argue that all of these films are great. At the bottom of the list, we have The Rescuers Down Under. Many of you may very well be unaware that this movie even exists, and there's a good reason for it. A sequel to 1977's The Rescuers, Rescuers was the very first sequel the studio ever made. Unfortunately, the film bombed horribly at the box office. Its financial failure led to Disney largely sweeping it under the rug, and even the cancellation of a potential third film. The movie follows the mice Bernard and Bianca, members of the Rescue Aid Society and the protagonists of the first film, as they travel to Australia to save a boy named Cody. Cody is in the hands of a dastardly poacher, Percival McLeach, who wants to capture the golden eagle Marihood for money. Jake is the only one who knows its whereabouts, and McLeach will do anything to get this knowledge out of Cody. During their adventure, Bernard and Bianca meet the adventurous mouse, Jake, save Cody and the golden eagle, and narrowly escape a dangerous waterfall. Even though it's at the bottom of our list, Down Under is definitely a film any avid Disney fan should check out. It may even be a rare sequel that is better than the original. At the heart of both Rescuers' film is a sense of adventure, and we feel that the sequel does a much better job at capturing that spirit than the first. This may be partly due to the change of scenery. The first film was mostly focused in small locations, like the Bayou. The sequel widens the scope, and you get a great sense of that right from the beginning. The opening sequence with Cody befriending Marihood gives the viewer a great taste of this adventure and excitement that is about to come. The animation in general is stellar. This was the first film to be completely created digitally, and its look would inform the rest of the entries in the Disney Renaissance. The movie does have its drawbacks, though. McLeach is a pretty forgettable villain. While George C. Scott does a great job injecting life into the character, he's ultimately just another villain corrupted by greed. He isn't bad, but he just doesn't compare to the villain of the first film, Madame Medusa. The movie is also kind of held back by the fact that it's just the first film again, but bigger. Just like the original, it follows our heroes as they rescue a child from a villain who intends on using the child for their own sinister purposes. Even with these flaws in mind, however, the film is undeniably fun. At the end of the day, there is a reason why this film is a cult classic, so check it out. Next up, we have Pocahontas. Now, this is a film that gets a lot of flack. For many, this film marked the beginning of the end of the Renaissance. The movie has gotten criticism for its depiction of the real Pocahontas story, its characters, and even just being a bland film. Don't get us wrong, the movie is anything but perfect, but a horrible mess? That we don't agree with. Released in 1995, Pocahontas wasn't based on a fairy tale, but a real event that happened. The film focuses on, as you would expect, Pocahontas. Things are going usual for her until a group of English settlers set sail for the New World. After arriving, they meet her tribe, and a love story begins between Pocahontas and their captain, John Smith. The two soon find themselves in the middle of a conflict between the English settlers and the Powhatan tribe, and work to build unity between the two different cultures.
But maybe we should try talking to them.
To get the bad out of the way first, Pocahontas is definitely a film with flaws. Both Pocahontas and John Smith are pretty flat in terms of character. They barely evolve over the course of the film, leading to one of the weaker Disney romances. Their characterizations feel like a return to the Disney characters of yesteryear. This is also another film where the villain is purely motivated by money. Our villain in this film is Governor Ratcliffe, the leader of the English expedition who is out to mine the new territory for gold. As far as great Disney villains go, don't expect Ratcliffe to crack any top 10 lists anytime soon. When you get past those issues though, this film is absolutely entertaining. It doesn't meet the highs of some of the other Renaissance movies, but there is enough here to make a worthwhile watch. And the animation style is very strong. In fact, the film is among Disney's most colorful. Unquestionably a great film to watch on a big TV. Its art style is also one of the more interesting of the era, as it was the first movie in the Renaissance era to really step out of the tried and true Disney style. The film's look seems to have been inspired by Disney's own Sleeping Beauty, which art director Michael Giaimo did use as an inspiration. And yes, the film is anything but historically accurate, but this is Disney we're talking about. Historical accuracy as a requirement for a good movie is subjective to say the least. Don't go into Pocahontas expecting another Lion King or Aladdin, otherwise you'll be disappointed. Just toss in that old VHS tape and have an open mind, and you might find that this movie holds its own. The next movie on the list is Tarzan, the final film of the Disney Renaissance. Tarzan doesn't match some of its predecessors in quality, but it was certainly a high note to end on. Based on the novel by Edgar Rice Burroughs, Tarzan begins with an English family who ends up in the jungle after their ship is wrecked. The parents are killed by a leopard, leaving their infant son all alone. A pair of gorillas who had lost their child to similar circumstances find the boy. He is given the name Tarzan and learns to live with all the gorillas in the jungle.
I'm gonna call him Tarzan.
As he reaches adulthood, explorers from England come to Tarzan's home and begin interacting with him. Tarzan finds himself shocked to see beings who look just like him, and becomes torn between whether to stay with the apes who raised him, or to go with the explorers who are the same species as he is. Tarzan was an absolute blast to watch. The film moves at a quick pace, but it never feels jarringly quick. Every scene moves at the pace it should, and then moves on to the next scene. The film also features a great supporting cast. Jane is one of Disney's most underrated female leads and should be talked about more. She feels a lot different than most other female leads in these movies and isn't just some love interest for Tarzan. The animal characters like Kerchak and Tantor all feel distinct from one another and exhibit a lot of character. It's quite funny how a film with tons of animal sidekicks never has a character who feels like, an annoying animal sidekick. The only blemish in the film's cast is the villain. Once again, a bit unoriginally solely motivated by profit. With that said, he does have arguably the darkest death of any other Disney villain out there. The animation is also a high point for this movie. You'd think the film's use of CG backgrounds would seem jarring by today's standards, but they actually look quite good. The scenes of Tarzan skating, if you will, on the branches of the trees holds up extremely well. and you never get the sense that the film looks outdated. In general, the scenes of Tarzan making his way through the jungle are among the best the movie has to offer. If we were to have any complaints about the movie, we would say that it doesn't have too much in the way of a unique identity. In a world riddled with dozens of different film adaptations of the Tarzan character, this movie doesn't really do a lot to stand out from the others, apart from being Disney's Tarzan. But it's still a great movie. And yes, the Phil Collins soundtrack is fantastic, but I'm sure you already knew that. Our next choice is Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Released in 1996, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is based on the 1831 novel of the same name by Victor Hugo. We follow Quasimodo, a deformed man who lives in a cathedral, who wants nothing more than to attend the annual Festival of Fools. He attends the festival, directly disobeying his guardian, Judge Claude Frollo, and meets the gypsy Esmeralda. Quasimodo ends up becoming friends with Esmeralda and starts to accept himself for who he is. Meanwhile, Frollo develops feelings for Esmeralda and begins a search for her that covers the entire city of Paris. It's up to Quasimodo to save not only Esmeralda from Frollo, but also all of Paris. Upon its release, Hunchback saw a lot of criticism, not unlike its predecessor Pocahontas. Critics felt the film was another bad choice to be adapted into a Disney feature, and the film's lighthearted elements didn't blend well with the darker moments. Thankfully, time has been quite kind to the film, and there is a good reason for it. The Hunchback of Notre Dame is absolutely one of the best films in the entire Disney animated canon. While Quasimodo isn't as strong as some of the other Disney protagonists, he is still a compelling hero. We're with him every step of the way, and we want to see him accepted by society. The supporting cast is pretty good too. Esmeralda fits well as the voice of reason, and the chemistry she shares with Captain Phoebus is great as well. The gargoyles are not great, but we feel that they do get more hate than they deserve. I mean, come on, they weren't that bad. But you know who is that bad? Judge Claude Frollo. Without a doubt, Frollo ranks among the greatest Disney villains, and it's hard not to see why. He's as evil as they come, and not in a cartoony way. Frollo feels like a real human being, and an awful one at that. He easily steals the show. What I like most about Frollo's character is that he's so evil in such a dark and mature way that it's almost surprising for a children's film. I mean, he almost drowns an infant in a well. I think Hunchback is an exceptional film because even though the audience was meant to be children, the writing doesn't treat them like they're stupid or fragile. The whole movie is pretty dark. Frollo also has one of the best villain songs in Disney history with Hellfire, being as dark and intense as the name suggests. The songs are certainly a highlight of the movie, with Out There and God Help the Outcasts being among some of the more unforgettable ones. The directors had quite the massive task of following up their first film, Beauty and the Beast, with this one. Thankfully, it led to one of the most epic and darkest films in the Renaissance catalog. Coming in at number 6, we have Aladdin. Based on an Arabic folktale of the same name, the movie follows Aladdin, a street urchin with a knack for thievery. After being sent to the Cave of Wonders by the evil Jafar, Aladdin and his pet monkey Abu find a magic lamp. Rubbing the lamp reveals the genie, voiced by the late Robin Williams, who grants Aladdin 3 wishes, with a promise that the third will free Genie from his servitude.
After I make my first 2 wishes, I'll use my 3rd wish to set you free.
Aladdin's first wish turns him into a prince in an attempt to impress Princess Jasmine, but he's got some competition. Jafar is also attempting to marry Jasmine as he seeks to become the Sultan. Aladdin and Jasmine inch closer towards falling in love, all while Jafar tries to take the lamp for himself and use it to fulfill his evil wishes. Aladdin is unquestionably one of the high points in the Disney Renaissance, even if it only takes our number 6 spot on the list. If that doesn't show you how strong the films of the Disney Renaissance are, we don't know what will. The movie is very colorful, and each shot is just bursting with life. The scenes set at night are especially beautiful, like the carpet ride with Aladdin and Jasmine. The animation in general is great. I mean, they managed to make a flying carpet feel like a living, breathing character, which says a lot. The voice cast is also one of the film's highlights. Scott Winger is great as Aladdin. You totally buy him as a good-hearted guy, and part of that is due to his performance. Jonathan Freeman is also great as Jafar, showing you don't need to be loud and boisterous to come off as intimidating. but none of them even compare to Robin Williams as the genie, who is inarguably one of the best casting decisions ever made for an animated film. His character is just full of life and charisma, and that's not all on Williams. The animation works equally as hard to bring this character to life as Robin does. The film also has one of our favorite soundtracks to any of the Renaissance films. Prince Ali, A Whole New World, and Friend Like Me are definitely standouts. Aladdin is also another film in the Renaissance that feels lightning-paced. We do take some issue with the film, mostly in the character of Jasmine. She's not at all a bad character, but she is pretty flat throughout the film, and doesn't really have much in the way of an arc. Despite that, the film is undeniably fun. We're moving on to the final 5, and our number 5 spot goes to the movie that started the Renaissance, The Little Mermaid. The film, based on the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale of the same name, tells the story of Ariel. She is a mermaid princess who dreams of becoming a human to explore the surface and meet the love of her life, a prince named Eric. After making a bargain with the sea witch Ursula, she is granted legs, but at the cost of her voice. To be honest, there are plenty of elements of this film that don't hold up, mostly relating with Ariel's character. Much like Jasmine in Aladdin, she doesn't have much in the way of a character arc. After she is granted legs and loses the ability to speak, she doesn't really have any sort of evolution from that point on. The film also doesn't have that lightning pace that so many of the Renaissance films do, and is more methodically placed. But even with these issues in mind, however, this movie is still a work of art. When compared to other Disney movies of the 1980s, the film feels like a breath of fresh air. The dark and dingy colors of those prior movies are gone, replaced with a palette of colors ranging the entire spectrum. The film perfectly captures the tone of Disney's roots, feeling very in line with classics like Snow White and Cinderella. While Ariel isn't the strongest protagonist in the Disney canon, the film's antagonist more than makes up for that. Ursula is one of the more fun villains Disney has given us, making this one of several instances where a Disney film had a more interesting villain than it did hero. The score, created by Alan Menken in collaboration with Howard Ashman, is also pretty amazing. The musical formula perfectly sets up what is to come in the rest of the Renaissance films. The film in general feels like a prelude as to what is to come, not just in the world of Disney, but for all of Western animated films in general. This is actually the main reason we rank it so high. The Little Mermaid set in motion the next 3 decades of animated films. You can see traces of it in practically everything that Disney does. And not just Disney, but also Pixar and DreamWorks as well. With an impact like that, we couldn't rank it any lower. But our number 4 spot goes to the 1997 movie Hercules. The film, as you probably guessed, is a retelling of the story of Hercules, son of the Greek god Zeus. This film was directed by Ron Clements and John Musker, the same creative minds behind Aladdin and The Little Mermaid. This would be the last Renaissance-era film they would direct, and we think they saved the best for last. In a lot of ways, Hercules feels like Aladdin dialed up to 11. The movie has the same wild tone, just to an even crazier degree. This film has probably one of the stronger set of characters for a Renaissance film. Hercules is a fun protagonist. In many ways, he's like the best film version of Superman that we never got. He has all the qualities you want in a hero. He's caring, daring, and kind-hearted. They say your hero is only as good as your villain is evil, however, and this film has one of the best Disney villains ever made. James Woods' Hades is easily a top 5 Disney villain. He owns the movie whenever he's on screen, and Woods' performance easily switches between goofy and sinister. Megara is a compelling lead opposite Hercules as well. She's an interesting character on her own merits, and the way she interacts with both Hercules and Hades leads to some great banter. Danny DeVito is also great as Phil, but that's obvious. Really, the reason we love Hercules so much is that it truly feels unique. It feels different from not only the other Renaissance films, but also other adaptations of Greek mythology. That's not to say the film is totally unlike the other Disney movies of this decade. It is a musical, and a great one at that. And we'll say it, Zero to Hero, and I won't say I'm in love, are our favorite songs out of any of these movies. We also really dig the art direction, which can be attributed to the amazingly talented Gerald Scarfe, a British cartoonist who you might remember for his work on Pink Floyd's The Wall. The art goes a long way in making the standout from the usual art style Disney was using in its films at the time. We also discussed how the film feels different from other Hercules adaptations, and that is one of its strengths. The film's fusion of ancient Greece and Vegas make for a film that feels unique from all other interpretations of the Hercules story. This makes it all the more interesting as an adaptation. We discovered how other films like Tarzan failed to do this, so it's relieving to see a film that could stand out among the other adaptations of the story. Upon its initial release, Hercules caught a lot of flack from critics, who panned the film's abandonment of a more traditional Hercules tale. Thankfully, Hercules has seen a reevaluation in more recent years, no doubt due in part to the film's original audience growing up. If you remember disliking this one, give it another shot. You might just find this one went from being a zero to being a hero. I had to say it. Our bronze medal goes to Disney's following film, Mulan. The film takes place in ancient China and follows Fa Mulan. When the Huns prepare to invade the land, a draft takes place and Mulan impersonates a man to take the place of her father in the army. Mulan is another film where its strengths come from its willingness to stand out from other movies. The film is darker than a lot of other Renaissance films. It's certainly no Hunchback, but this movie might just have the largest body count of any Disney movie. The film's use of action also helps set it apart from the others, and is a strength of the movie. The Hun ambush in the mountains, as well as the final battle between Mulan and Shan Yu, are among the best scenes of the movie. We especially enjoy the final battle with the characters fighting on top of the Emperor's palace. The characters are another highlight of the film. Mulan is a great protagonist, and we quickly learn to care about not only her, but her family. Captain Li Shang is a great lead opposite of her as well. The two share a chemistry throughout the movie, and they feel like one of the more interesting Disney couples, which is an accomplishment since they don't even share an obligatory Disney kiss. Mushu often straddles the line between lovable and annoying, but we think he ends up in the former area more often. Shen Yu isn't the best villain Disney has offered, but he still works as an intimidating threat.
Nice work, gentlemen. You found the Hun army.
Every time you see this guy, you know that things are about to go down. But even if he wasn't the strongest villain, Mulan really shines as a story that deals with the person versus society type of conflict, which actually allows the villain to comfortably take a back seat. The music is another highlight to this movie as well, with Make a Man Out of You being the obvious favorite. What really makes Mulan a favorite of ours, however, are the movie's themes. The movie tackles themes like war and family, and it does a great job handling all of them. Like we said, you really get to care for Mulan and her family, and this extends to when she's out at war. The movie does a great job showing the war and its cost, not shying away from some darker moments. Yes, it still feels like a Disney movie, but it's a breath of fresh air to see them tackle the subject matter relatively seriously. What we're saying is, Mulan is a movie worth fighting for. Our silver medal has to go to Beauty and the Beast. Based on the fairy tale, the movie tells the story of Belle, a young woman who becomes trapped in a castle. The castle is home to Beast, a prince who was transformed into a monster, and his servants who were transformed into household objects. As the film progresses, Belle and Beast bond more and more, eventually finding true love. While The Little Mermaid is where the Disney Renaissance started, we feel it was this film that solidified the Renaissance as a true Disney era. The film feels like Disney took the formula established in Mermaid and essentially perfected it. The animation is wonderful and fluid. The sequence of Belle and Beast dancing, wonderfully crafted by legendary James Baxter, showcases this. The characters are all compelling and likable. Belle and Beast work as great protagonists. From the moment they appear on screen, we can get a read on what these characters are like. The servants are a lot of fun too, and provide some nice levity to the story. Gaston is an incredibly entertaining villain as well. It seems like the directors of this movie, Kirk Wise and Gary Trousdale, have a knack for creating villains who still feel human. Just like Frollo, Gaston is a human who is rotten to the core. Maybe not as bad as Frollo, but still pretty bad. And again, he also has one of the best villain songs in the form of Gaston. The soundtrack in general is one of our favorites, another collaboration between Menken and Ashman. Sadly, this would be the last major Disney film to see contributions from Howard Ashman, who passed away before the film's final release. Like Little Mermaid before it, Beauty and the Beast feels rather slow-paced. However, this film turns that into a strength. The slower pace lets the relationship between Belle and the Beast evolve at a more natural pace. This is also helped through the use of setting them alone for several scenes, making them work as characters first and as a couple later. The movie takes its time to let the romance ferment, leading to one of the best romances in these films. Overall, Beauty and the Beast is a high point in not just the Disney Renaissance, but in the entire Disney canon. We'd tell you to watch it, but we're sure you already have. And finally, our gold medal goes to the film you all saw coming. What else could it be other than The Lion King? To make the summary of this film short, the movie basically tells the story of Hamlet but with wild animals. The fact that we didn't even have to summarize the film shows its power. No other film in the Disney Renaissance has impacted popular culture like this one has. If you, or anyone else on the planet, have seen one film from the Renaissance, chances are high that it's this one. The film is legendary in a way the others just can't match. They even put it in the Library of Congress. But its cultural impact isn't the only reason we rank it so high. Films don't make an impact for no reason, and this film has a lot to showcase why it's so fondly remembered. The cast of characters is instantly memorable and recognizable. From the Mr. Bean voiced Zazu to the quirky and wise Rafiki, every character has something to offer. Simba is a really interesting protagonist, and it's fascinating to see him grow up throughout the movie. We start with him as a cub in the movie's prologue and end with him becoming king. Unlike other protagonists who follow a similar evolution, Simba does develop as a character with these shifts in age. How he is as a child feels completely different to where he is when we meet him as a young adult. The film also has some great comedic relief in the form of not only Timon and Pumbaa, but also the hyenas. They're all great, and the comedy that comes from them feels different. They don't ever feel interchangeable. Scar is also a great Disney villain with an iconic performance provided by Jeremy Irons. He's a villain who loves nothing more than to do evil things. In general, the voice cast is one of the strongest in a Disney movie. It's got James Earl Jones, so that's all that needs to be said.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
We also really love the film's epic scope. From the opening prologue, the audience totally gets that this film is going to be an epic unlike anything Disney has done before. The wildebeest stampede and final confrontation between Simba and Scar are for sure the strongest set pieces in the movie. The soundtrack is just as memorable as the film itself as well. What kid doesn't know at least one song from this movie? Overall, The Lion King is just Disney at its best. It has everything you want out of a Renaissance-era film. It's fast, epic, funny, emotional, and has a catchy soundtrack to boot. We're so confident that you've already seen it that we're just gonna tell you to rewatch it, and maybe skip the live-action remake. But with that said, what do you think? Do you agree with us, or does your list differ? Let us know what your favorite and least favorite Disney Renaissance-era films are in the comment section below. Make sure to hit that notification bell and check our other Disney videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.